schools with substandard scores go into corrective action and must take measures to improve student outcomes. Schools throughout the state help prepare their students for the stress and pressure of taking those tests. Now, Tempo and Dep's Grover Silcox takes us to Donegan Elementary and Liberty High School in Bethlehem to see how they pump up their students.
I got a lot of capability, PSSA, oh, come on, let's go.
These fifth graders at Donegan Elementary School in Bethlehem rev up for Spirit Week, the week before they take the Pennsylvania System of School Assessment Test, or PSSA, in reading, math, and writing.
I want to celebrate proficiency, PSSA, oh, come on, let's go.
Today is wear your favorite sports team day, wear its favorite sports clothes. It's just our way of having a little bit of fun, and for the teachers to have a little bit of fun too. We've all been really working so hard.
Don't let the revelry fool you. These kids spent all week boning up for the PSSAs. Students throughout Pennsylvania in grades 3 through 8 and 11 take the test this time each year to see where they and their school stand against statewide standards.
We've seen increases in reading and math, but dramatic increases have been in math.
Donegan students face certain unique challenges with reading and writing because 78% of them are Hispanic and still assimilating English.
The PSSA tests, if you've ever seen them, are geared toward children who don't have second languages and third languages.
A Portuguese explorer led the first voyage around the world.
The kids play quiz games to sharpen their recall of material they're expected to know by 5th grade.
See if you can figure it out. It's higher than 5th grade.
Teachers fire questions and demand prompt answers.
I need a definition. A definition. A living thing that what?
The kids practice how to answer under pressure. They also learn test-taking strategies.
How to break down words, try to figure them out even though you may not know exactly, with prefixes, suffixes, looking at sentences.
What is the suffix in the word helpful?
The PSSA may seem daunting, but teachers say most kids know the material. All they have to do is follow some common sense rules.
Get a lot of sleep, make sure you eat a really good breakfast, and that morning of, just pump them up and tell them, you've been doing this all year, we've been practicing it all year.
What do we have? All right, correct answer.
The school strives to pump up student confidence.
I know that I'm going to do well with the teachers teaching us everything. I think I'm going to do pretty good because, the last couple of years I've been taking the tests, I've been getting 8. I've been getting most of my answers correct. I've been getting advanced.
These 11th graders at Liberty High School also have PSSAs coming up in the week ahead. They'll be tested on reading, writing, and math. On this day, English teacher Holly Erdman gives them some pointers on taking the test.
Eat breakfast. It actually is proven that you will think better.
Sometimes it's not about what they know, it's just how to take the test. That really helps them.
When you're taking this test, don't panic when it's boring. In other words, it has to be universal for everyone in Pennsylvania. If you're nervous, it means you care.
Liberty also has had a tough time hitting benchmarks set by PSSA and is in corrective action to address lagging scores.
Liberty High School has a very diverse population, so we have multiple subgroups. We have low socioeconomic status students. We have a very large portion of our student body who have been classified as having an IEP.
That's an individualized education plan for students who need more personal attention. The school also has block scheduling, which means students who have had math and English one semester may not have it when PSSA testing comes, in which case the school provides refresher classes.
If you read some of the questions first, you could probably answer them before even reading the passage. Okay, you can highlight when you know, I know there's a question on that one, highlight that. Your brain is working smarter, okay, and not harder.
We have prepared them as much as we can. We're exhausted. They're exhausted. And if they had paid attention every day of their entire high school career or middle school career, I'm sure they'd be brilliant, but I know I didn't. But they have been given the information, they know the information, they need to trust themselves, and they'll do fine.
Principal JOANN DURANTE sees the importance of PSSAs, but points out the shortfalls.
While you're working on PSSA and showing achievement, you have all these wonderful things, national merit semifinalists, commending students, students going to China because they're the #1 math scholar in the Lehigh Valley. You have all these great things going on, but we're shadowed by these scores.
And these educators, and thousands like them, have the job of saving those lost in the shadows. For Tempo and Depth, I'm Grover Silcox reporting.
Thanks so much, Grover. Joining me now is Dr. Jack Silva. He is the Assistant Superintendent at Bethlehem Area School District. Dr. Silva, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, Amy.
Let's talk a little bit about it. People, numbers are things that stick in people's heads. And we showed Liberty in the story, but both Liberty and Freedom High School are in corrective action this year. Help us understand how we got there and where we're going.
Corrective action is a result of multiple years of not making, under No Child Left Behind, the definition of adequate yearly progress, where students as a whole or either in their subgroup of students did not meet the thresholds required by the law. It doesn't mean that, as Dr. Mayo said earlier, that we're not experiencing student growth, that the students themselves may be starting at a lower level and growing, but they have not been able to clear those thresholds. In the case of the Bethlehem Area School District, we had been making AYP as a district every year until last year, where we fell below that threshold largely because of the overall performance of our special education subgroup. But still, the PSSAs or the standards of math and language arts that they measure are important measures of core learning in our school districts, which we hope to improve.
We heard a little bit with Dr. Mayo that real challenge is when you have a lot of transient students, which I understand you do in Bethlehem as well, some, that when they come into your district and they're already a couple years behind, it is a challenge, because if you bring them up one whole year, okay, you're only 1 year behind now instead of 2, but they don't have as good of a chance to succeed on those tests. How do we deal with that? How do we help create the whole child?
The PSSA or the AYP designations really only address one part of a child's education, what we call in Bethlehem the core learning of a child, what we might have remembered as the reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's still important. However, in Bethlehem, we've created a roadmap for our educational excellence that emphasizes not just core learning, but also stretch learning, student engagement, and personal skill development. So when we talk to employers or people at the college level and they say, what are you looking for in graduates? Everyone is looking for students who can communicate well, who can solve complex problems, who have good personal skills to be able to be a member of a team. And that multifaceted definition of school improvement, core, stretch, engagement, and personal skill development really gives a better picture of the student. And that's what we have used in our school improvement design and how our board and our administration and our teachers are committed to improving the whole child.
One of the things that people often talk about is that dual enrollment. As your students are that senior year, they can take college classes at the community college as well. You've seen quite a bit of increase in your dual enrollment numbers, haven't you?
Dual enrollment is an important part of our stretch learning plan. 2 years ago, the state had a program which actually helped low-income students be able to take dual enrollment because there was a partial reimbursement for it. That program was lost 2 years ago, and there was a decline in the number of students taking dual enrollment. I'm glad to report today that we just had a meeting with the Northampton Community College, and compared to last year, this year our dual enrollment is going up. So those are students who are really stretching themselves to experience a little bit of their post-secondary careers while they're in high school. And we want to do that for all students, whether it's through dual enrollment, whether it's through advanced placement, whether it's through the NOCTI exam at the vocational technical school. That is part of the stretch learning that, in our minds in Bethlehem, is as important as the PSSA score that a student gets.
Help us understand, though, because the pressure that you have to feel from the public is really on those PSSA scores, because that's what ends up on the front page of the newspaper, whether you meet it or you don't meet it. And so many things are being done, but what else would you like to see to try and help your students get there?
I would like to see more members of the educational community and more of the overall community really embrace a more multifaceted definition of what student success means. Whether it is our roadmap with the multifaceted, what I would call photo album approach to achievement, where you look at a lot of different measures to evaluate a child, I would do the same thing for school. Do not evaluate a school just because, as Dr. Mayo said before me, they don't chin the bar of some standard, but are they growing? Are the students achieving? Are they finding a direction and a path for themselves and excelling in that path and becoming good citizens and prepared graduates? That is really the more effective measure of a school's success and a student's achievement.
The good citizens part, I know in the Bethlehem School District you have a requirement for community service. Help people understand, why is that? Because some may say, well, that takes away from their core learning to meet that reading, writing, and arithmetic. Why do you see that as important?
Because that's really part of personal skill development, of which character and leadership are very important. So, for instance, when our graduates at Freedom or Liberty have achieved 60 hours of service learning, they get from their employer or whoever was arranging their volunteer experience feedback from them on the lines of, hey, they were a team player. They identified an area of interest. They worked well with our staff. They adapted well. And we have students doing all 60 hours, but we have students doing hundreds of hours, even a student doing over 1,000 hours of service learning. When you put that all together...
Which is a big deal, because teenagers these days are often rather self-centered. I mean, they can be, and they always have been.
I've heard that.
But if you're focused on getting them to serve and learn how to serve others, that has to impact certainly the whole child as well.
Not only the child, but it also helps the student engage in his or her own education more fully and makes it more likely that they will have the achievement in the core and stretch areas. Many times we find kids have a motivation gap as much as an achievement gap. So you have to work on all facets of that child.
Before we run out of time, Dr. Silva, what is the one thing you want the public to know that you think may be misunderstood or lost in all these numbers as they go flying around?
That that PSSA scores or AYP are only a snapshot in time about a very small part of a student's education. That being a good citizen, pursuing your area of interests, establishing a career, being strong in the arts and sciences, finding that path for you, whether it's in the arts or in the sciences or STEM, and pursuing it and achieving in that area is as important as a cut score on a PSSA test.
Dr. Jack Silva, Assistant Superintendent of the Bethlehem Area School District.